Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum, which you should definitely all join. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Flatzoid, 10th Man and Chocolate Sane in G+. Very good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Also got a few people in Discord as well, so welcome one and all. I'll have to scurry to get you all off mute while I do the housekeeping, so welcome to you lot as well. Any signs of Earth curvature?
No.
Still working for Africa.
Not from Texas.
Nope.
Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Definitely nope.
Not
Only
at all.
fantasy.
No? Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
Only apparent.
Apparent? Yeah, that's no good. Not actual distance isn't what I'm
Nah.
asking for.
Just assumptions.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Gravity. What's that?
If they mean a force, no.
What's that?
Over to our worldwide correspondents over on Discord. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity. Scientific evidence thereof.
No, not scientific. No.
Bummer. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope. No evidence.
Sounds like a cartoon. No.
They're Acme drill bits. What about the presupposition itself? What about evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Definitely not.
Hello.
Hey,
If
Owen.
we couldn't answer the first question with curvature, I'm not sure how they would have gotten a radius.
They presuppose it.
Kind
They
of.
just decide that shadows on lights in the sky mean Earth's a sphere.
Nah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's correct. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon for all the fundamentalist religious zealots who believe the sky is a vacuum known as outer space?
The death blow to the Baltards. No way. Demonstrate it, please. And they can't.
You can think of it as a part.
Hold on. Whoever just took themselves off mic, you're causing horrendous feedback in Discord.
It was Flatzoid.
Yeah, it is. It's the death nail. I think that's it. That concludes housekeeping. So,
I was gonna say, Nathan, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of a container around the Earth.
so what? It's the necessary antecedent.
But no evidence.
No, there is. The gas itself is evidence.
Has it been anybody ever observed, seen, touched, filmed, measured the container?
So did you not listen to my rebuttal? You seem to have repeated yourself rather than addressing my rebuttal. Do you want me to repeat it, or did you just totally ignore it deliberately?
I didn't ignore it. I was asking for evidence.
Yeah, I gave it you. Did you not hear it?
That's not evidence. You're inferring.
What was it? Do you want to repeat it? Clearly not. I'll repeat it then, and we'll see if you can address it this time. The gas itself is evidence of the antecedent-consequent relationship requiring to be fulfilled. I'll quote a school teacher known as Conspiracy Cats here on YouTube. He's coincidentally on your side of this argument. Quote, without the container, there can be no pressure, end quote. We have gas pressure. That was my evidence. Are you going to just repeat your claim? Or maybe address that?
I didn't actually make a claim. You're the one making a claim.
Yeah, you were talking that you explained that there was no evidence of any containment, and I pointed out that we have gas pressure. That would be the evidence, and now you seem to be whistling past it like you didn't make any claim. Your claim was by inference that there is no container, correct?
So you're extrapolating.
Your claim was by inference that there is no container, because according to you there's no evidence of such, in spite of the fact that I have now given you the evidence. Silence.
Whoop whoop.
The gas pressure is the evidence, RC. How slow do I need to say it?
Maybe he doesn't understand antecedent.
So that'll be the end of RC Meisty Straw Man.
A straw man asking for evidence? I don't think so.
I gave it you. You haven't addressed it. What, you're going to circle jerk back and say that because you've asked a question that's been answered, that somehow you haven't had your request fulfilled? You have. I gave you an answer. You're still yet to address it. Quote, Conspiracy Cats, 2019, school teacher, on your side of this argument. Without the container, the thing you say we have no evidence of. That's in parentheses, not part of his quote. So I'll start his quote again. Without the container, there can be no pressure. We do have pressure though, don't we, RC? You going to address this? Clearly not. Yeah, you sit your ass down, RC Dick.
Nathan, I tend not to address 12-year-olds.
You sit your ass down, dipshit. You don't have anything to offer in regards to this straw man of there being no evidence for a container when the gas we breathe is evidence that there's a container.
Except you haven't provided it.
The gas! Are you dumb? Or deaf?
Like a
Or just
pressure.
ignorant? I've said it about 5 times, given you a quote from a school teacher on your own bloody side. You've said there's no evidence of a container. Quote, Conspiracy Cats, 2019. Without the container, there can be no pressure, end quote.
Great. And I would say a gas pressure gradient is evidence of a
Sorry,
vacuum.
pressure gradient? A delta of pressure? You're going to move on to a delta of pressure? No, without the container, the thing you say we have no evidence for, there can be no pressure.
Well, using your same logic, I'm allowed to extrapolate that at the end of a pressure gradient.
A gradient is a delta of pressure. Without pressure, there can be no pressure gradient. And without the container, there can be no pressure.
seems like the louder you get, the more insecure you are, Nate.
The louder I get, because you seem to be adding on a delta to something that has the necessary antecedent for something you've claimed there is no evidence for. That would be a container. So let's not move on to a delta of the thing requiring the necessary antecedent. That would be a container, the thing you say there's no evidence for. But you're dancing around it like a fundy little bitch. Another long silence.
I think the only one who is insecure.
Oh, time to project some shit onto me, right? Tell me what my problem is. No, Fundy, your problem is you've said there's no evidence for a container. That was your claim. There is gas pressure. You're still not addressing it.
I'm addressing it directly.
Go on then.
Yep, and there's gas. There is gas pressure, and I observe a gradient. That gradient goes to 0.
Go on then. Address it.
Meisty, can you define gas pressure? RC Meisty?
Yeah, anytime gas exists.
What did you say? I didn't hear. Hello?
You just said anytime gas exists.
Sorry.
How's your weekend, bro?
But RC, I posted a link for you in the chat. You can go read it. You can read it out loud for us. What does gas pressure entail?
It sounds like RC's driving. So if RC gas pressure in your definition is anytime gas exists, how does gas exist?
You can measure pressure.
What's the
First,
measurement?
you might want to define gas pressure correctly.
Okay, he said you can measure it. What's the
definition of gas is not of gas pressure is not whenever gas exists. It's ridiculous. So you're already wrong.
I think judging by the freak out by you guys, my work here is done. You guys have a great day.
What the hell are you talking about, bro?
Freak out. Sounds like a disco song.
Sounds like I'm taking a nice quit early before I get caught out there. That's what that sounds like. Because he defined it wrong and said he did his job and he's leaving now. So have a good day, buddy. Okay. Next.
Gas exists. Therefore.
Okie
Fill in the
dokie.
blank.
So, in summary, we have gas pressure, proving beyond all certitude that the sky is definitely not a vacuum, as asserted by the heliocentric globe worshippers. The sky is not a vacuum. Outer space is fake. It's claimed to be a vast, empty, cavernous area that gas would want to fill. And we do have gas pressure here. We're breathing it right now. But one of the characteristics of that gas pressure is it wants to expand to fill the available volume, as per entropy. And according to their religion, there's a violation of that entropy, a violation of a natural law. The second law of... Go on, Flatsoid, sorry. The second law of thermodynamics is being violated by this model of a sun-centric sphere Earth in a vacuum. We're not in a vacuum. The sky is not a vacuum. Outer space is demonstrably fake. Hey, Paul.
Hello, all. Hello.
Hello, Paul.
But it was nice that the fundies at least attempted to put a straw man our way in regards to the necessary antecedent of a container. According to them, there's no evidence of this. What? And therefore the sky is a vacuum? Was that where that was going? I think not.
Well, that's why I kind of tried to have him define gas pressure, because it seemed like he was a little bit lost. So he incorrectly defined it and then decided that that was his win, and then he left. So that's fun.
Yeah. Of course, they know how deep the hole gets if they stay.
Just using as imagery, we've all had low tire pressure. We pull into a gas station and we get a pump and we fill up our tire to the proper PSI. Now that low tire pressure in a sense, in this imagery, would be like a gradient of air in the tire, but not full. But you still need the tire.
Yeah.
No, it's not hard to understand.
The measurement itself has an area. So, area of what? Well, in that example, the tyre or the inside rim of the wheel. That's your area. Something to press upon, in essence. That's what pressure is. And we've got it. But according to them, it gets to a certain point and just goes, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to defy the second law. Entropy don't apply to me no more. I'm not going to expand to fill the available volume that I've got to fill. No, I'm not going to abide by gas law. No. Why? Because, well, there's fundies out there that think the sun is at the centre and we're on a sphere. So I'll just stop about here. That's what they think gas does. They're idiots. The sun-worshipping religious tarts that think they're on a ball.
System.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry about that. I said you can have a very low pressure dynamic or low pressure in a dynamic system. Boyle's law would even potentially indicate that. And you can have a lot of stuff and still have low pressure.
And where are you getting that pressure from in the first place? First instance?
From this containment.
The force it exerts on the walls of its container, yeah, right. That's what gas pressure does. Unless you're a fundy and you think you live on a globe. You know, when they show you those distant pictures of Earth, those bullshit renderings, and they show you, I don't know, Saturn with Earth as a tiny little dot with black all around it. Well, according to that rhetoric, those paintings of your Earth that you think you live on if you think you live on a sphere, well then you've got a tiny dot with gas pressure clung to the outside of it in a vast vacuum. And it's not dissipating, it's not filling the available, it's just staying there. Well, that's just a violation of a natural law. The entire model breaks down with this point. Your heliocentric sphere world breaks at the point that we ask how you can have gas pressure without a container. Because that's what your world is, fundies, religiotards, sphere worshippers, sun-centric idiots.
When we say vacuum, we mean very little of anything there, not just low pressure, because you can have a lot of stuff with low pressure.
Well, a can of soda, unshaken, can be opened without everything fizzing out. The minute you shake it, and you try to open it up, you know what happens.
And somehow these clowns think it's the equivalent of the carbonation just sitting in the soda while it's open forever and ever and ever because of magical forces and magical bending of magical conceptions. It's ridiculous.
It's even worse. It's even worse, chocolate, because their can of soda is spinning.
Yeah, they're saying you open the can of soda and the carbonation, it doesn't escape because it gets to the opening and it just stops. Stops there. There's nothing to stop it, but it just does. It just stops. It doesn't fill the available volume. That doesn't happen. Violates
and they have this,
law. Go on, Paul.
They have this massive thing that's producing a lot of heat, which is producing a lot of kinetic energy too. So they have that other thing too. More temperature, higher pressure, less containment, no containment.
No, well, but that's not a problem because according to these guys, that thing producing that heat, it's just decreasing the entropy everywhere it hits. So don't worry about that.
That's why the sun's not 93 million miles away, because it's within the container itself.
Yeah, endless violations of natural laws. That's what the heliocentric system is. Most of it based on mathematics, none of it based on physics. It's a model.
I'll play the goat hard for you, though, since nobody's wanting to pipe up, because I know this is where they're going. We all know it. But the molecules of gas have weight to them, Nathan. Don't you know this? And this thing called this gravity stuff that causes things to go back towards the ground?
Okay, number one, gas law. Gas expands in all directions to fill the available volume. That's gas law. That's entropy. That's what's gonna happen regardless of what weight you attribute to that gas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is your claim that gravity does something when it's the bending of a conceptual medium. Fourth dimensional space-time. This isn't an actual medium. This isn't a place. This is Narnia. Not actual place. Pseudo-Ramonian force space is the geometry. Length, breadth, depth, and time. Well, that's not real. Time is a concept. Space-time is a concept. Bending space-time doesn't give you anything. It gives you a non-force, according to current astrophysicists who punt Einsteinian mechanics. A non-force. Well, there's no force involved in pseudo-Ramonian bending of space-time. Hello, who is that? Pretty triggered.
I'd say.
But does it turn into a force if you think of it as a force? Does that work?
Well, the way that works is you can think of it as a roast chicken dinner. Same sort of principle. You can think of it as a roast chicken dinner, but it's not a roast chicken dinner. But you, Chocolate, you can think of it as a roast chicken dinner. You can. You, not me. It's not a roast chicken dinner.
But I like roast chicken, though. I mean,
And then you can think of the bending of pseudo-Ramonian force space.
Yay.
You can think of that as a chicken dinner if you want to. You can.
Thanks, that's awesome. I'm gonna have me some chicken dinner.
Meanwhile, someone else is also thinking of it as unicorn farts. But you can think of it as whatever you like. That's the most important thing. That's the good thing about concepts. You can think of them as whatever you like. They're just concepts. If you want to think of it as a concept of chicken dinner, that bending of a conceptual medium, and that's what bending of a conceptual medium gives you, chicken dinner, then you can think of it as a chicken dinner. It's just that simple. Concepts are great for that. The only downside to them is they're not reality. They affect nothing in your actual life. So yeah, thinking about unicorn farts and chicken dinner as a result of the bending of a conceptual medium, that doesn't affect your life. I mean, that's not reality. It's a concept. It's just a concept. That's what Einstein gives you. Lots of concepts, not reality. We don't live in Narnia, and we don't bend space-time. Equally, you can't bend freedom. You can't bend concepts. That's not possible.
Sorry, Nathan.
Go on.
Can I ask Bert to actually come and talk? Because he just keeps typing on Discord and it's starting to irritate me. Can't he just use his mouth and talk?
I closed down the chat text from Discord just so I don't end up getting triggered, because that's what they want. They want you to try and engage them so they can just give you stony silence and crickets from the Discord server. I'm sure if they've got
some... come on live so we can talk to you.
Maybe.
They're not coming. Listen, I think Paul playing Globetard was good because Nathan's answer was no matter the weight, gas expands in all directions. So it wouldn't matter if this gas weighed more than this gas. It's still gas law. It expands in all directions. That was point one Nathan made. Point two is they're trying to say there's gravity that is the container. However, even if we went into that argument, because there is no gravity, it's a non-force force, but even if we went into that argument, the gas is expanding in all directions with their gravity.
Yeah, but still, even pressure gradient is in the same system.
No, don't miss my point. My point is they're arguing gravity is the container. However, even with their gravity, gas is expanding in all directions. So gravity ain't doing its job, is what I'm saying. Because gravity is its strongest at the level we walk on the Earth. It's weaker up there.
Very well phrased. So where I used to get in trouble from Sleeping Warrior, where he'd say, why are you begging the question for them? Where Quantum Eraser and myself would say words to the effect of, you can have both Einsteinian and Newtonian or Cavendish, Reverend John Michel gravity at 100%, 200%, 300% full effect, because it makes absolutely sod all difference to the actual gas law which will not be defied. It's a law. That's how gas works. So it makes no odds. Now, the criticism from Sleeping Warrior is, look, I'm arguing about gravity in this corner and you're saying you can have it. Whereas the way you've just phrased it is far better, or far superior, 10th Man. Because you're saying, even though they claim gravity will maintain gas like a container, it isn't maintaining gas as a container, even if we pretend it's there. So we can say, all right, yeah, there is this magical force. Now, that's where I'd get in trouble, because you're begging the question for them. No, there isn't, is the ultimate bottom line. It's the bending of a concept. Then I don't have to get into begging the question, saying, sure, have it 100% force. Have both of the nonsense gravity forces that aren't forces. Because it's not going to defy gas law. If it did, it wouldn't be a law anymore.
I'll give you a practical. No, it's all right, Paul. I'll give you a practical event or demonstration. I had to let the sides of my greenhouses down because the weather changed here. It got cooler. And so upon inspection on the roof part of the greenhouse, there were some holes because the plastic is going on 5 years old and it needs to be changed. So there's some entropy taking place and there's these holes. So I put my hand over the hole and I'm feeling all this hot air coming out. So of course I went and got my patch kit, which is a see-through tape, and taped it up. And I put my hand over and no more hot air escaping. Interesting.
Actually, I think water boiling in a vacuum is their death knell. They don't even realize it, because technically, if their theory, so-called, is gravity is in effect, water should pool in the bottom of a vacuum chamber, right? So, because we, like 10th Man saying, is if the gravity is in full effect at all times, then as soon as you remove the rest of the air, the substance in the vacuum chamber, the water should just pool back down at the bottom. But it doesn't. I'm waiting for somebody to demonstrate that for me.
Paul, go into that a little deeper. Are you saying that when they did a vacuum test inside of a container shown on YouTube, that as they pulled the air out with a pump and there was some water in there, it boiled?
Yes. Yeah. It's all over YouTube. You can see that very regularly, very easily. So
now tie that into what you said again.
Oh, may I? So yeah. I gave you an image of a painting of a picture of, say, Saturn with Earth in the background. Well, the frame of that picture, albeit with Saturn in the foreground and a tiny dot, 1 or 2 pixels when presented on a television screen in the far background, that's representing Earth in that painting. Well, that Earth is framed by, albeit again not actually a container, an ever-expanding non-container, because you can't have a vacuum without a container either, let's not forget. Nevertheless, in that picture, if you just accept that that's a vacuum in the painting, then what's Earth? Well, it's a tiny little speck of dust with a bit of moisture on the outside edge of it, with a little bit of gas on the outside edge of that. Well, what's going to happen if that was analogous to Paul's, let's call it a flake of skin with a tiny droplet of moisture around it with a tiny bit of gas off venting? What's going to happen to that in that chamber? Do you think it's going to maintain its structure? Do you think it's going to stay exactly as is? Or do you think it's going to turn instantly into complete gas and then just spread out to fill the vacuum?
I'll have to go hard again. But scale, Nathan, come on. It's scale. The Earth is so big and that flake of speck and so small. It's scale.
Well, no. I juxtaposed it with an equivalent scale. So when you've got Saturn in the foreground in your picture, you remove it and you've just got a dot in the background. Earth, claimed to be a water planet in a vacuum. Well, that's analogous to a tiny drop of water in your vacuum chamber. Well, do you think it's going to maintain? It's just going to float around in that vacuum like a little droplet of water floating around, bobbing around? No. Do you think it's going to sit at the bottom like a little droplet? No. It's going to vaporise instantaneously as soon as you start pumping the air out.
Paul can ask a favour.
My point being, as would Earth. all of the gas would instantaneously dissipate into the vacuum, and all of the water would instantaneously boil off because there's nothing holding it there. Analogous to a tiny drop of water in a vacuum, it doesn't pool at the bottom, it doesn't hang around in the middle, it doesn't even stay as one, it just dissipates into gas and fills the available volume, as per the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy takes effect, the gas fills the space. That's after it's vaporised. In other words, it's not staying as a little drop of water inside the chamber, but when people see Earth, this little water ball, in a vacuum, they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Well, no, it doesn't. It violates a natural law. Entropy would take hold.
Nathan, you guys want to have a laugh?
Always.
Good morning, gents.
Hello.
I posted a citation in Master B that one of the ballers just gave me. I think Paul must put it up so we can read it and we're going to laugh.
You're going to present your screen, Paul?
It's about entropy.
I don't think you've got his attention. Go on, Nathan.
Nathan, that NASA employee tried to use the weight argument for gas, and I told him gas presses out in all directions, and he just threw his hands in the air and fumbled his NASA paperwork and said, well, there's probably something you're missing. And I said, no, nothing I'm missing. Space is fake. And then he said, oh, well, there's probably no point in talking anymore. And then he tried to end the conversation like they all do as soon as you know that the whole thing's a hoax. They don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, that's what the guy RC did earlier. As soon as you reach the point that you're talking about gas expanding in all directions and necessary antecedents of containment, they disappear. They put their hands in the air and go, I'll keep in, because basically their rhetoric falls apart. Their lies have stopped working. We know the magic trick and all the other analogies.
Another thing I asked him, because he said gravitational orbits, and he goes, do you believe in the ISS? Believe? And I was like, man, science is not a belief. I don't have to believe in the ISS. Can you demonstrate gravitational orbits? And then I asked him how fast the ISS is going. He said 17,000 miles an hour. I said, have you ever gotten anything past 5,000 miles an hour? And he said, no. And I said, I know, you haven't. Because the ISS, nothing goes 17,000 miles an hour. That's just Santa Claus. That's how he delivers presents to the kids. It's going 17,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, the ISS is quite a cool part of the magic trick when you think about it from their point of view, because they do have a light in the sky, and they've got a film set which they say is what's happening on the light in the sky. So that cognitively is going to be... Go on.
Even if they have a light in the sky, Nathan, there's no way they should be seeing it for 6 to 8 minutes if it is traveling 17,000 miles an hour. Because the distance it would be traveling in 6 to 8 minutes at 17,000 miles an hour would, one, make the angular resolution limit of the ISS impossible. But why is that light not fading away at the horizon? It just doesn't make any sense, even from what they claim it is. It shouldn't happen that way. It's just, the QE said it best. They can't say 2 sentences without contradicting themselves on the first one. They're just double-speaking religious nutballs.
Sure, but they've, in the years, decades, centuries gone by, they've utilised lights in the sky to convince people of, obviously, cosmology, and this is no different. You know, they're utilising a light in the sky, and they're telling you, you know, it doesn't matter if they're telling you what a god is up in heaven or what a light in the sky is. It makes no difference. The principle is the same. They're telling you what the light is with a play, with something on a stage. And for those of you who go, when he says, do you not believe in the ISS, it's so that they've got a way of juxtaposing the light in the sky with the film set. Because the film set says it's in a vacuum in 0 or very near 0G, and those are all parts of their rhetoric in the model. But the light in the sky is nothing to do with their television presentation. And that's what they want to argue between, so they can flip between the two. When you say, of course the ISS is fake. And they go, there it is, look, it's right there in the sky. And what are you supposed to respond? Well, yeah, that bit's real. By then you've lost your audience.
And it's funny how they just ignore all the bloopers from the ISS footage. There's hundreds of people ghosting out of the scene, harnesses, green screen, augmented reality failures, hairspray. I mean, it's a total joke. Anybody who thinks that that is a real production in space is sleeping. So
correct.
You can have your light in the sky.
Correct.
It's all a joke.
All I was going to do is lead you where you went beautifully. Thank you. So yeah, so that leads to the next step, which is looking at the play, the bit on the stage, and pulling that apart for why it isn't a light in a space vacuum, right? Well, there's a much quicker step. You can sidestep all of that. Well, the light in the sky is just a light in the sky. If we're both standing right now looking at it and we watch it go overhead, me and NASA guy, and the NASA guy says, yeah, that's got people up there in a space vacuum and they're in 0G and they're in orbit. All you have to ask is, well, that region that they're orbiting in, that's a sky vacuum, right? That sidesteps all of it. If you debunk Narnia itself, you no longer have to argue about the gas lamp or the time dilation problem in Narnia. You just debunk Narnia. So their claim is that light in the sky is their play. Well, the way to chop their head off immediately is say, well, where's that happening again? In a vacuum? No, that's a violation of a natural law. Space is fake. So if their region that they claim it's happening in is fake, their entire play is fake.
Now they just move the goalpost and say the atmosphere extends beyond the moon.
Doesn't matter. That makes no difference, providing you understand the argument. It doesn't matter where they push the Tor values. It's an open system. Therefore, will always be a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Regardless of where they push the Tor values, the numbers that they attribute to how far out the gas pressure goes, it's still at some point gas next to a vacuum. And all it will want to do is fill the available volume. That's all it wants to do, regardless of where they say the values meet.
It's just hard to nail them down. They're like slimy earthworms because they'll say the ISS is in space and then they'll say atmosphere extends beyond the moon. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. So in that sentence, your devil's advocate globe rebuttal is to say, well, it's in space. I've already dealt with that though, haven't I, Nathan?
Yep.
Space, you say? What? A violation of a natural law? Gas not filling the available volume? Entropy not taking hold? Gas not expanding? No, that's definitely not the case. That region you claim that light is in with your plays, that's a fake region. End of argument.
So everyone who comes on your panel, Nathan, is kind of ready to debate you and stuff. But if you go up to people in nature that have not been looking into this, they have absolutely no clue what they believe with the heliocentric model. And if you talk to them for more than 30 seconds, you'll hear the word believe 3 or 4 times because they're obsessed with cult rhetoric. They're obsessed with beliefs. It's just a vain religious superstition. And that's all they got, dude. Props to you guys for tearing that religion apart because it's a really dumb one.
I agree. It's a religion that has no scientific empiricism backing it. And up until the last couple of years, it was asserted to be backed by science. Amazing how quickly the tables turn.
The truth is incontrovertible. Malice will attack it. Ignorance will deride it. But in the end, there it is. That's Churchill.
I did just a quick glance at this document.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Joel, if you can Paul's just started presenting something. You're a bit quiet, Paul. We'll come to you.
Oh,
shortly,
sorry.
Joel.
Is that better?
Yeah, you're all good.
Can you? Okay, I just did a quick cursory. I just got glanced at it. I didn't really go in depth, but they were talking about the gravity over or decreasing entropy. The first thought I had, the molecular gas theory says that gases are elastic, or is it the word right? A word elastic, which means when they collide, they have the same amount of energy that goes in the opposite direction when they collide. So right off the bat, they were talking about how gases kind of start to coalesce and form into things. Well, gas to start to pull together have acceleration, which means they have to go towards each other, which means they're going to collide, which means they would repel each other back in the opposite direction. That's just reading the first couple of paragraphs right off the bat. And also, if you noticed, it's all about calculations if you read the rest of the document. I don't mind calculations, but if you can demonstrate how this occurs, I would be more apt to believe it, not just writing a bunch of equations on a piece of paper. So demonstrate how gases can coalesce to form balls of water, balls of anything. Please demonstrate this.
Well, if that's what it's addressing, that's not the question we ask. The rhetoric is the Earth is a ball with gas attached to the outside in an ever-expanding, vast vacuum. So our question, based on the claim from the fundamentalist religious zealots known as globeheads or sphere earth believers or heliocentric worshippers, those people have a claim. Our question is, how can you have gas pressure, as we do have here on Earth, without a container? The necessary antecedent for gas pressure. That's our question. So unless that's addressing this, if you're saying, well, I'd like to see these equations demonstrated, well, unless it's a demonstration of gas pressure without a container, I couldn't care less, because that's their rhetoric. The Earth has gas pressure, it's an open system next to a vacuum without any containment. Is that Ranty?
It is, yeah. Hiya. How's it
Hello.
going?
Hello. Are you back on the air?
Don't forget all those.
Clearly
Can I
not.
get
By
a
that
shout out for Rumpus real quick? What's up, Ranty? Sorry, real quick. So the Rumpus states, at Nathan Oakley, you don't seem to understand that gravity is a force which exerts a pull on the atmosphere to keep it on Earth.
No, it doesn't.
It is very, very simple. You are a moron.
No, he's just
So
incorrect.
apparently,
That's
Rumpus
right.
has reverted back to the old gravity is a force argument, Nathan, and you are a moron.
It's
So
all right.
there you go.
They go around in circles between rhetoric that's only a few years out of date and rhetoric that's over 100 years out of date. So no, gravity is not a force.
But so he reverted back to the old argument? Because I could have sworn a few weeks ago he was arguing how gravity was, the bending of space-time. So what happened here?
Yeah, that's a loser, so he goes back onto the old loser because he needs it to be a force, even though it's in violation of a natural law. He's just wrong. So, hey, Burn Fat. Sorry, you left you on mute. If you can hang about, you're causing a load of feedback, Burn Fat, till your stomach. I'll have to pop you on mute till you sort out your watch page. So, Joel, is it Joel or Joel? Which do you prefer?
Joel.
Joel, go ahead, my friend.
Awesome. So I do have a question I haven't been able to answer or explain with any functional laws of physics. Or maybe I'm just not wrapping my head around it correctly. So I'm just sort of looking for some insight from you. After spending like many nights doing my own personal observations of quotation marks gravity, the only argument I have that challenges my disbelief of gravity is that when I bust a nut on your wife, why does it slap her in the face?
Is that really your question? Just an ad hom? Okay, well, let's not be answering that. You didn't observe gravity, because you can't observe gravity. There is nothing to observe. It's the bending of a conceptual medium. What you got for us there, Ranty? Physics.
Oh,
physical geography.
Right. So, whilst I was away last week or the week before, I stopped in this charity shop and I picked up this book. It's quite an old book, actually. I can't actually find any place that you can buy this book. There's a reproduction that's like 44 quid from 1927 or something. So this is an old book from 1877. And it's basically physical geography, basically the shape of the Earth. And this was punted, obviously, like 142 years ago. I just wanted to see, I've got a few images to show you, if you guys can have a look and see if the arguments have changed any from what they were punting 142 years ago. You'd think that if this is what they had 142 years ago, then essentially they'd have, some scientific proof to back this up. They've been punting it for 140 odd years.
Fill us in. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I can see your screenshots flicking along. Go ahead, tell us.
Okay, so, I can read it out if you like.
Yeah, great. By all means.
Right, here we go. What then is the Earth on which we live? The answer to this question must be chiefly given by astronomy. But there are some familiar features in the Earth itself which, if rightly considered, help to make the answer more vividly realized. Evidently, there is much advantage in obtaining a clear idea of what the Earth is as a whole before we begin to trace the events which take place upon its surface. In the first place, then, the Earth, like the Sun and the Moon, is a globe. This may be proved in various ways. If we sail from England and steer westwards without turning back, we shall eventually find ourselves in England again, This is called circumnavigating the world. It would not be practical unless the Earth were really a globe. What do you think of that one?
Affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, it's also begging the question. So it starts out just before it starts detailing circumnavigation by just declaring that the Earth's a sphere. So it's just a begging the question fallacy.
Standing by the margin of the sea and looking seawards, we observe that a ship, which is moving away from us, by and by seems to sink into or under the sea. The hull first disappears, and then by degrees the sails, so on. So, on the other hand, when a vessel approaches us, we can first, with a telescope, make out the tops of the sails and the masts just peeping above the distant surface of the ocean. Little by little, the sails rise, as it were, out of the water until at last the hull and the whole vessel come into sight. This could not happen unless the surface of the sea, instead of being flat, were really curved. That is, part of the curved surface of a globe.
So yet another affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Also another reification fallacy in the respect that they're claiming by inference that the horizon, an arbitrary position where the sky appears to meet the ground, which they do allude to a certain extent, is actually the edge of a sphere. That's what they're essentially reifying. So it's both an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy and then therefore by definition a begging the question fallacy, also a reification fallacy. For show.
If the surface of the Earth were flat, as men once supposed it to be, the sun would rise at the same time at all places on the Earth. But this is not the case. Sunrise takes place later or earlier as we travel west or east. Again, on ascending a mountain, we should see the whole of the Earth's surface if that surface were really a plane. But the extent to which we see depends on the height of which we climb. This shows that the Earth must be a globe.
So again, they're using a false equivalency and using the diffraction limit as though on a flat plane you'd see forever. That's essentially what they're saying. But based on the fact that something's disappearing, it must be because of its spherical nature. So another affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. The only thing they've not done is put the if P. The if P has come on the first page as a blanket statement so that they don't have to formalise each of these logical fallacies. The if P comes by declaration on the first page, and then therefore Earth is a sphere. The therefore Q comes after each of these whatever inference they give. Nor in this instance with a false equivalent, not a false equivalency, a false dichotomy put on top of it. So we've got so far about 5 different fallacies. We've got reification, we've got begging the question, we've got affirming the consequent times 3, and then what's this one? Not false equivalency. I said it a second ago. I've forgotten the name of it already. False dichotomy. So putting up a false either or choice by saying if it was a plane, well, back that bullshit. Don't just declare it. But nevertheless, they're just giving you a false dichotomy. So we've got at least 4 fallacies, one of which they've used 3 times, which is the affirming the consequent. All of them, sorry, just one other thing. They're all wrapped up in the begging the question that's been declared on page 1. Sorry, carry on.
Well, what I find interesting, firstly, is they actually mention that the shape of the Earth as being flat. They actually mention this. They actually have to put this in to try and indoctrinate people to say that it's not. This is back in 1877. They talk about it being a plane. You see that the argument was probably going on back then.
Of course, it's never going to be the case that it won't go on. Perhaps this is something that is continually being suppressed. Maybe we're kept in this corner now where people were penned in by different means in days gone by. So perhaps we as a subset of society will remain that way while the new oppression comes for the new generations and we get washed away and, deleted from history for remnants of it to have not gone through the memory hole. This being one of them. So you can see how people previously... The point is that, it's been continually argued about because the nature of reality is what it is. It's flat. And the zealots who are in positions of control assert otherwise. They say it's a sphere. And therefore you have most of the information, probably what we're talking about right now, making its way to the memory hole. And then the new generation coming along and fighting about it again because they've observed the nature of their reality. Obvious that it is. obviously an observably flat Earth, told that it's a sphere, people are going to wake up to that periodically.
What's interesting well, there's got a couple more slides to go, but what's interesting is it's the same arguments that they're using back then as they are today. It's literally the same. Let me continue. When the Earth comes directly between the sun and the moon, so as to cut off the light of the former from the latter, the moon is said to be eclipsed. Now, if we watch the Earth's shadow as it creeps over the moon's surface, we see it to be circular, and hence we know that the real form of our planet must be that of a globe.
That's a flat out begging the question fallacy. So if you start with the first statement again, they flat out declare that one is moving between the other. So we've got orbits being begged. Immediately, it's just done by declaration. So this is flat out begging the question fallacy. We know, because I've declared it in my first opening statement, that these objects are moving between one another and are spherical. Therefore, when we observe them doing things that would match being that, which I've just declared, it proves what I've... It's also an affirming the consequent. Yeah, so it's a begging the question, affirming the consequent. So times 4, so far, most common used, affirming the consequent.
Were it possible for us to quit the Earth and look back upon it from a distance of a few million miles, it would appear as a large bright moon, hanging in space, just as our moon does, with the stars twinkling on all sides of it. Its surface would shine like that of the moon. With the light falling on it from the sun, it would be seen to be marked by irregular, bright and dark strips and patches. There would also be 2 specially bright parts on opposite sides of the Earth's body, making the great regions of snow and ice at the north and south poles. Between these 2 areas, certain bright irregular bands would indicate the position of the dry land, while the intervening darker portions would show the extent of the seas. If we could transport ourselves still further away, for instance, we could get as far off as the sun. That is to say, more than 91 million miles from where we are living at this moment. Our Earth would be seen shining merely as a bright star, and were it possible for us to reach one of the nearest fixed stars, our globe would be no longer visible, while the sun itself, if seen at all, would appear merely as a twinkling star.
They've stopped going into arguments and even formulating fallacy. They've just gone into flat out storytelling and declaration about what the model is and how it works.
But the Earth is not a perfectly regular sphere. In particular, it is somewhat flattened on 2 opposite sides, so as to resemble an orange in shape. This is how it is known and measured. Will still be seen from lesson 4. A line from the middle of one of these flattened sides passing through the center of the planet to the middle of the opposite flattened side is called the axis, and the points at which it reaches the surface are known respectively as the North Pole and South Pole. A line drawn midway between the poles around the bulging part of the Earth is termed the equator.
So it's offering a part of the rhetoric with the straw man fallacy embedded, so that these arguments can be padded out for future generations, as we well do, but while simultaneously also going along with the rhetoric that's just been declared. So in other words, they want this argument to take place about this oblate spheroid, a recent declaration, or relatively recent declaration in our present history, if you will, by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, you know, them saying it's a pear-shaped is no different to this. It's an embedded straw man to argue about while simultaneously begging the question that Earth is a sphere. So this is turning into more like programming and storytelling indoctrination rather than actually arguments. So it started off with a couple of logical fallacies just to poo-poo away flat Earth with I keep forgetting that fallacy, false dichotomy. That was the only mention of flat Earth, and then they've dropped in a few mentions where they've got flattening factors. I like it. So it's just the same old. You're right. It's almost parallel. So maybe we'll get some new smears of bullshit out of the current arguments layered on for the next generation. I'm being very pessimistic, aren't I? Feel free to read on.
It goes on about it being a plane again. So long as men in the early times looked upon the Earth as a great plane placed in the center of the universe, with the sun, moon, and stars moving over it and under it every day and night, they could not for a moment imagine that the Earth itself is moving. But the truth in this matter has now been so long known that we have no difficulty in seeing how the apparent movements of the sun and stars are explained by the real movements of the Earth. Of these movements, the 2 chief are called rotation and revolution. Rotation. The most obvious movement of our Earth is its rotation on its axis, to which the succession of day and night is due. A complete rotation is performed in about 24 hours. During that time, each part of the Earth's surface is alternately presented to and turned away from the sun. As the sun rises in the east to give us day and appears to travel westwards across the sky, the real motion of the Earth must be in the reverse direction, or from west to east. It is evident that the Earth rotates. The rate of motion and the distance traveled will vary for different parts of the surface according to their nearness to or distance from the axis. When a cartwheel, for example, is made to spin round on its axle, a mark made on its rim must move faster and describe a much larger circle than one made near the axle. Places situated on the Earth's equator must have the maximum velocity and travel over the greatest distance, while at either pole the velocity must be nil. The circle described by a place on the equator is indeed the whole circumference of the globe, so that when the number of miles in the circumference is known and then divided by the number of hours required for a complete rotation, we obtain in figures the rate of motion. At the equator, this rate is found to be upward of 500 yards in a second. It gradually diminishes to the poles. Now, if the Earth is rotating with such speed, why are we not jerked off its surface? When a stone is thrown into the air, why does it not immediately rush away into space instead of falling back again to the ground? Because that is called the Earth's attraction. It's far stronger than this tendency to fly off. Everything in and on the surface is pulled downwards towards the center of Earth by this attracting force, which is called gravity. But it will be seen that the influence of rotation is nevertheless unmistakably marked upon the greater atmospheric currents, since these have their direction modified by it. And
Hey Nathan, let me have a minute or so before you close out. When you're done, thanks.
You nearly done, Renty?
Yeah, that's all their evidence for the globe.
Mike's all yours, Kiwi.
Hey, Trish Blythe Clown Show. Why don't you bring your retard boyfriend, twice toe tag demonstrated liar Toady, on the show tomorrow and present your case of the fairy tale radio bounces off the moon? This retard Toady just 2 weeks ago didn't know that the non-visible part of the EM spectrum was light. Like a butcher struggling to realize that ribeyes come from cows. Sick of hearing your clown show in the chat. Little chat trolls. Come on the show. Grab the pair and come on the show. And let's deal with you idiots once and for all. Thanks.
No worries. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of today's debating panel for making this live show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of you tuned in on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. If you are watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!